In Islamic, you have Islamist groups. They are flagged groups that have been put into terrorist lists that are more or less everyone agrees upon. So you can focus action. And there's a huge amount of experts, scholars that knows about this very, very well. When you go to right wing, it's a constellation of groups that have been understudied, that are using lingos, platforms that are not the mainstream, in groups that are spreading across so many languages. When Islamic propaganda, I mean, if you master really, you know, the language it is produced, you're much more effective. This is way more complicated, way bigger in volume, and much more concerning because this is embedded very closely to political parties in Europe.
Many people don't know anything about cybersecurity, about the potential, the damaging potential of these tools.
But in this case, it's very interesting what you're saying, because there's a big misunderstanding in cyber, and I don't think we are going to solve it now, even if you tell about it. The thing is that first, sorry to say, it's boring. Yeah. It's a boring field. For most of the people, cybersecurity is, I need to change my password. I don't want to change my password, so I don't want to talk about this. This is a boring field. You know, let me be free and easy and whatever. So then there's no understanding that cyber does not exist, if you think about it, really. Mm-hmm. What exists is access to food, access to water, access to energy, education, banking. This exists. And all of this is digitized. And the threat is on the foundation of what exists. And that's the change of storytelling. If we talk about cyber as a thing, we lose people. They don't get it. So what are you talking about? Cyberspace? What is cyberspace? Interconnected machinery? I don't know. I don't even know what you talk about. If you talk about your access to clean water, your capacity to heat your house, your capacity to put gas in your car, your capacity to access your bank account, and these are the topics, then suddenly they start saying, wait, what are you talking about? There's a threat on this. It was very novel back in the days in Europol to admit that in cyberspace, law enforcement is very weak, because cyberspace is a private space. Yeah. These are pipes, cables, networks which are owned by the private sector. So public entities, government, law enforcement, everyone, they are very, very, on the back burner. So it was having as a strategy a cooperation strategy, making sure that you could collaborate with private entities in order to chase criminals, which in police mindset was very new. COVID-19. Yeah. When the pandemic hit, there was a surge of disinformation, malinformation, misinformation, you call it the way you want, like bullshit information out there, like on the surge, with an intent or sometimes just for free. What this creates is an overdrive in the information ecosystem where criminals can strive. So if everyone around you is saying that the vaccine is stupid and should not be used, as a cyber criminal, it's very easy to put a do-not-vaccine-yourself.com where people are going to click, and I can put a lot of scams. I don't even have to be the one pushing the disinformation, but I can make the best of the information ecosystem to invent a new crime. That's a shift. So you accelerate crime doing like this. The second shift is because you put people so much dependent from digitization, you force all the companies in the world, no one forced us, we had to, so okay. There was a fact that all the companies in the world, private sector, public sector, they needed to digitize very, very fast. When you digitize fast, what do? You do mistakes. It's simple. When you do something fast, you cannot do it good. That's kind of a rule. So you make contracts with other suppliers that are not secured. You deploy your capabilities using a machine or computers or infrastructure that you don't really understand. You give access to all your staff a bit all over the world to access your assets because you need to stay in business. Yeah. When you do this, you create vulnerabilities. If you're an attacker, it's popcorn time. It's like you look into, okay, I can attack here, I can attack there, I can attack here, and then you increase the attack surface. But we should not underestimate that also criminal groups had to adapt. And that's not, it's not like they were ready for everything, they planned this before. It was heavily disruptive on criminal agenda. So it says that at the end it's very human matter. Everyone was impacted, and the one that can, I would say, surface are the ones that adapt the better. On the good side, on the bad side. The criminals that could really readapt their model, they could continue to strive. The others, they could not. But something that we do know, from what we trace as campaign of cyber attacks since the 2022 invasion of Ukraine, is a proliferation in the number of threat actors.
Yeah.
So to date, we have more than 120 threat actors active in the context of this invasion. And today, the most impacted country by cyber attacks is not Ukraine, it's not Russia, it's the rest of the world. Spain was impacted by cyber attacks in the context of this invasion. So this shows that there's a at least loose interconnection between actors which are exchanging tools, exchanging knowledge, coordinating action, and this augments the threat surface. That in the middle of it, state actors are spending their own money to develop specific capabilities, recruiting staff, of course. I mean, all states, the states with some capacity, they are doing this. So there's some programs that are known when it comes to building their own cyber offensive capacity and cyber defensive, that's for sure. I go back to my silo example before. If you continue to think cyber here and content there, you're by default never going to understand the threat landscape.
Yeah.
Because the threat landscape is fictious. That's more this. It's more in the implementation phase. So I don't think there's not the ambition and the willingness states, big companies have silos, organization. You have intelligence services here, you have law enforcement there, you have judiciary here, you have cybersecurity there. All of this is different world with different bosses, with different agencies, different budgets. So to make sure that they can cooperate and get to you a threat that is accurate in terms of what is happening, it's very, very tough. Is that way, again, let's evade the James Bond movie thing. It's like, yes, you have Russia and they are very evil and everyone else is very nice and this is what is happening. That's not the point here. The point is to say that this is a very polarized society.
Yeah.
I mean, for disinformation to work at this scale, you need someone to listen to it. You need someone with the willingness to believe in it. And that's more in the responsibility of the receiving states. What have we done with our democracy for the past 30 years so that incredibly crazy story can get an echo, can hit the heart of your citizen and make them move into action. So there's a vulnerability there that was not created by Russia or anyone else.
Do you find alarming some kind of radicalization that you've seen inside our democracies? I don't know if
the right wing is much more concerning to me.
Than Islamic?
Oh yeah, much more concerning. If you talk about volumes, I'm not talking about the end result of the threat and the number of dead in the streets because of a terrorist attack. So don't make me say what I don't want to say. But on the volume side, if you make an equation between volume of the threat, resources spent to counter the threat, and technical capacity to counter the threat, this is way more problematic. I was working on tackling propaganda for a lot of years. From getting the talent in-house, developing the technology, negotiating with the private sector to take this content down. It was way easier in Daesh and Al-Qaeda context than in the right-wing context. Because in Islamic, you have Islamist groups. They are flagged groups that have been put into terrorist lists that are more or less everyone agrees upon. So you can focus action. And there's a huge amount of experts, scholars that knows about this very, very well. When you go to right wing, it's a constellation of groups that have been understudied, that are using lingos, platforms that are not the mainstream. So in order to find the technology to get the content, to detect it, the partnership with the platform to take it down, the scholars that are going really to give you information, in groups that are spreading across so many languages, when Islamic propaganda, if you master really, the language it was produced, you're much more effective. This is way more complicated, way bigger in volume, and much more concerning because this is embedded very closely to political parties in Europe. The adjacent, rhetoric in between what is a far-right, terrorist-related group and what is a normal political group, sometimes it's difficult to navigate. So it gives that problematic much more complicated to address than the other one. To me.
Yeah. And we don't have seen the top of the consequences yet.
No. And I will take one example, which was my unit coordinated, sadly, the EU response real time during the massacre in Christchurch in New Zealand. So when the video was spread online with the live killing, so my team was trying to detect this video at scale all over the internet to take it down. What we discovered here is quite interesting, and that's a far right, clear case. What we discovered is that it was very difficult for us to identify where on the internet this was going to happen, because these were not networks that we knew so much, because quite different than the jihadi one. Then we discovered that there was a lot of communities that by default are not even thinking themselves of terrorists, but they call themselves like this, so I'm not inventing, the shit posters. They like that there's bullshit on the internet. So they were using a lot of capabilities to keep the content live. So you had one content that was spread by the attackers, that was demultiplied by the far right logic, demultiplied by the jihadi, because they were very, very angry and they were calling for vengeance, demultiplied by the shit posters, and demultiplied by the media, because the media were talking about it. And here you are, trying to coordinate action all over the place to take this down. And this ecosystem is very complicated.